Hey everybody, so today I have for you another video in the exclusively pumping series here on my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks that might make your exclusively pumping journey just a little bit easier. I got these through my experience of exclusively pumping for 10 months. I had some of the BBB mamas help me, which BBB is a Facebook group that I am an admin of, and I will have the link down below for that group. And then I also did get some of these from a strictly exclusively pumping Facebook group that I am a part of. So I'll have both of those groups linked down below for you. I'm going to jump in though because I have it on a sheet of paper, and as you can see I have a ton of tips and tricks for you guys. Some of these, like I said, are going to be tips. Other things are like tricks to make things easier. Also, forewarning, some of these are a little repetitive of things that I've said in my previous exclusively pumping videos. I feel like there's just 5 or 6 things that you need to know about exclusively pumping that can never be said too many times because it's so crucial in your pumping journey to know and understand those things. So for those of you who may have not even watched those videos or something like that, I still want to throw those in there though, so you guys could hear them as well. But like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and get started because this list is super long. So I'm going to be looking down a lot, and excuse that. The first one is extra parts. So I'm talking flange, connectors, valves, membranes, whatever your pump may need. Get extras of those parts because you are exclusively pumping. You're going to be using them quite frequently, and it's just nice to, whether they break or you're feeling a little bit lazy and you don't want to wash them that day or whatever it may be, it's just nice to have extra parts around just to have them. So hands-free pumping bra is just amazing. You definitely need one if you're going to be exclusively pumping, whether it be you pumping in the car, you're pumping at home. That thing is just amazing. It allows you to obviously be hands-free, and it's just, I just keep wanting to say amazing because that's what it is, but definitely look into one of those. So the next one is one of the biggest tips you can get, and that's having the correct flange size. Obviously this makes a world of difference. You want to make sure that you have the correct fitting flange. If you aren't sure on how to do that, I'll have a Google Doc listed down below that I'm going to type up with all these different tips and tricks, and I will give you some picture references. Although in BBB we do flange size, you can private message any of us admins and we're able to do that for you. If you're not comfortable with that though, like I said, I will include pictures in the Google Doc down below on the correct fitting flange and things like that. So the next tip is to not be afraid to call the manufacturer if your pump gives out. When it comes to exclusively pumping, you're putting a lot of wear and tear on that pump, so it's not uncommon for your pump to go out. You know, some pumps also aren't meant to last as long as others and things like that. So if your pump seems to be losing suction, you're just having problems with it, or if it just quits altogether, is making a funky sound, whatever it may be, don't be afraid to call the manufacturer. From my own personal experience, my last pumping journey, I only had a Medela Pump and Style Advanced, and their customer service is amazing. You'll always hear that about Medela because it truly is amazing. If you paid or your insurance gave you a pump, don't be afraid to call and ask for a replacement, because whether you paid a lot of money or your insurance gave you one, it should somehow be covered, hopefully. So don't be afraid to call the manufacturer if you're having problems with your pump. Another really big tip when it comes to exclusively pumping is to have a strict schedule. I've had a lot of questions as to what my schedule was, and I guess I've never really made it clear, but I pumped every 2 to 3 hours around the clock for the first 12, 14 weeks, something like that. I will admit that I slacked off somewhere in the middle of that, and I was only pumping like 4 or 5 times a day, and I started getting 1 or 2 ounces every time I pumped. I started freaking out and wondering what was wrong. That's when I was like doing more research, and I realized that you can't pump 4 or 5 times a day at like 6 weeks postpartum and have a good milk supply. So I kicked that back up to 2 to 3 hours around the clock. Like I said, I kept that going until about 12 or 14 weeks. I was able to get my supply back. And then after 12 or 14 weeks, I went every 3 to 4 hours around the clock. And it wasn't until around 5 or 6 months that I dropped my middle of the night pump. And then after that, I did not drop any other pumps until 7 months. And then shortly after that is when I found out I was pregnant, and then I obviously started the weaning process. So that was my schedule, but especially in those first 12 weeks, it's very important to pump 2 to 3 hours around the clock. I know it's crappy, I know you're tired, I know you have a newborn to take care of, but when you're exclusively pumping, it's very important to do that. After that 12-week mark, You could technically have the pumping schedule that you want, just be aware that, you know, if you drop pumps or go longer without pumping, you may see a decrease in supply. So a strict schedule is definitely key. Another, I keep wanting to say another really big tip about exclusively pumping, but I feel like all of these are really big tips and like can really help you out. But the next one I have is lubing your flange. I've also had questions on this. What I mean by this is your flange. You want to lube the part that your nipple is going to be in. So down here inside this tunnel, not really up here, because I remember the first time I did it and I just kind of threw coconut oil all over this thing and my boob was slipping and sliding. So just try to keep it into the tunnel and like maybe a little bit on this rim right here. I don't know, whatever's comfortable for you. A little trial and error here, but definitely lube up your flange. The most comfortable for me is coconut oil, although I've heard people of using nipple balms like the Honest Company or the Earth Mama Baby Angel Baby, whatever that brand is. Like the thinner consistency nipple balms, I've heard women like that. If you're in a pinch and you've maybe forgot your coconut oil, or you don't have any at home, or whatever it may be, or you're allergic to coconut oil, I guess, you could also use olive oil. Just don't use as much because it's a little bit thicker. So definitely lube up your flange because it can make a world of difference when it comes to comfort while pumping. And that's also like a really big thing. You want to be comfortable when you're pumping. If you're not comfortable, you know, you're going to be stressed out, you're going to be in pain. That can decrease your output. So obviously comfort is best here. The next little tip and trick that I have for you is that you can actually use Medela Parts on a Spectra pump. I have heard amazing things about the Spectra pump, although I've heard kind of so things when it comes to their parts. They're just kind of hard to get your hands on, and then they're expensive when you can, and it's just simpler to also use Medela Parts because a lot of people, I keep saying Medela, it's Medela, but Medela is more widely available. I know most people already have some kind of Medela Parts if you haven't bought a Spectra just right off the bat or anything like that, and it can just make things a lot more simpler. Also, the Medela connectors fit more range of bottles than the Spectra ones do. So I do know that the company Momma, which is a third-party company who makes off-brand pumping parts, made an adapter so you can stick it into the back of your Medela pump parts and then use your Spectra tubing and stuff like that without having to hack it. There are plenty of videos on here on how to hack your Spectra, although be forewarned, I think that would probably void your warranty on your Spectra. I'm not 100%, but I would assume it would just because you're messing with it. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure if the adapters would void your warranty. I'm not really sure, but that can be a definite huge help, especially for someone like me who I have all Medela pump parts because that's all I've ever had. So I don't want to spend a ton more money on getting specific Spectra ones when I know what Medela ones work for me. You can also keep your pump parts in the fridge. That's another really big one and super useful one. What I mean is after you get done pumping, go over, rinse your flange and everything out underneath a faucet of water, and then throw them into a gallon Ziploc baggie and throw them in the fridge. You can't do this if your baby's immunocompromised or if you have a preemie. I think you're not allowed to do this either. There's certain circumstances where it's probably not best that you do this, but it can save you some washing and it can save you some extra dishes. Now, my baby was full term. She's never had any problems or anything like that. So I felt comfortable doing this. Maybe talk to your pediatrician, see if, they're okay with it. I'm not really sure because, like I said, my circumstances were okay and I felt comfortable doing it, but it can save you a ton of washing. And what I would do is I would just do this throughout the day, every single time I pumped. And then at the end of the night is when I would wash and sterilize my pump parts. So that can be a huge help as well. Pumping into feeding bottles is one of my biggest tips and I guess a little bit of a trick when it comes to exclusively pumping. This is what I did with Sophie. I would pump straight into her Dr. Brown's bottles and she would eat right out of them. So it saves me from having to dirty an extra bottle, and sometimes it was just convenient because she had warm milk that she could drink. So that's a great one. The next one is never setting a pump time limit. You always want to pump until empty, whatever that time frame may be for you. There's going to be different times for different people. There's people I know who take an hour. There's people I know who take 20 minutes. And thankfully, I could always empty in 7 minutes, although some people aren't as fortunate and they take longer. So whatever that time frame may be for you, you want to pump until empty. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, I was told to only pump for 20 minutes. Well, if you empty in under 20 minutes, I could understand that. But if you don't empty at 20 minutes, you need to be pumping until whenever you are empty. More of like a motivational tip, really try to power through and give the first 12 weeks your all. I know those first 12 weeks are super, super hard. You have a newborn who's up all the time. You have you who has to get up all the time and pump. You've got a ton of bottles, a ton of pump parts, and whatever it may be. And I understand that it's really, really hard, but if you can stick through those first 12 weeks, I feel like it does start to get a little bit easier and you start to get a little bit more of your footing, and it's not as rough as the first 12 weeks were. So my advice is to just really stick it out. I remember I wanted to quit so many times in those first 12 weeks, and at the end of it I was super glad that I stuck with it. So really try to push through all those feelings of, okay, I just want to be done with this, and really give the first 12 weeks your all. Something else I wanted to mention is whether you make 3 ounces or 300 ounces, it does not matter. Every drop counts when it comes to breast milk, and your worth as a mom or how well of a job you're doing as a mom is not determined by how much breast milk you pump. So please keep that in mind. I know I was constantly stressed over it, whether it be when I had that low supply or even when I became an oversupplier. I still worried about that stuff. And at the end of the day, if you and your baby are healthy and happy and the rest of your family is, that's all that matters. So really, try not to put too much stress on yourself. Kind of going along with that, you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, staying hydrated, eating your calories, trying to relax when you can, trying to let go of some stress, which I know is hard as a mom, but those things really do matter. In my eyes, I feel like breast milk is an amazing thing. It's an awesome thing. And if we can give that to our children, that's great too. But at the end of the day, your child needs a healthy and happy mom more than anything. So try to keep that in mind. This next one I found on the Exclusively Pumping Facebook group that I'm going to list down below for you guys. But I read it and I was just, I don't even know the words. It was such like a aha moment. Like, why have I never thought of this? Like, why? It's such great advice, and I really, really love this. But someone said, try to have a positive outlook on your pump. It's super simple to look at that thing and be like, I'm hooked up to you all the time. I hate you. I don't want to pump anymore. I hate this, whatever it may be. And instead, try to have a positive outlook on it. For a lot of EP moms, if they're not choosing to exclusively pump, it's the only way for you to supply your child with breast milk. So while the pump may not be your most favorite thing, it is giving you an opportunity to give your child breast milk, and just try to have a more positive outlook on it. And when this lady had posted that, a lot of other ladies said, this actually really helped me once I started having a more positive mindset when it came to pumping. It was a lot easier for me to get the sessions in. I started dreading it less, whatever it may be. Like I said, I know in the middle of the night, I can't tell you how many times I was tempted to throw that thing outside. I totally get those feelings. Those are never going to go away. Those are normal. If you're hooked up to a torture sucking machine 24/7, you're gonna have some of those feelings. But try to generally keep a positive outlook on it, because it could really help you and make your pumping journey a little less stressful. I kind of touched on this before with some of the other things that I had said, but don't compare your output to another mom's. It doesn't matter. You're doing an awesome job. Just focus on you. I know it's hard, especially in the Facebook groups, when people post pictures of these huge bottles filled up and you may not make a lot, or vice versa, whatever it may be. Don't compare yourself to another woman's output. Everybody is different. Everybody makes different amount of milks. Everybody makes a different amount of milk. So really just try to focus on yourself. And, of course, if a mom is struggling, uplift her, try to make her feel better. But when it comes to everybody's output, we really shouldn't be comparing ourselves. One of my personal biggest tips that I give EP moms is to keep spare parts everywhere. So I'm constantly forgetting things everywhere. So in my pump bag, I have parts for me to pump with. So that way, if I forget to grab them and throw them in my pump bag, there's parts in there that never leave. Literally, they never leave. If I happen to use those pump parts that were in the bag because I forgot something, when I get home, I put another clean pair right in there. So I would definitely recommend keeping them in your pump bag, in your car, at work, in your work bag, in your purse, whatever it may be. Just keep them everywhere because you're bound to forget flange or a connector or something like that, and you're gonna be super glad you had one. A little tip and trick while you're pumping: be generous with the letdown phase. Every pump has a different button or way to do this, and I'm not sure on every pump's way to do that, but I know for the Medela Pump and Style Advanced, it has a specific letdown button. I would hit that thing a ton of times. If I seem to stop having a letdown, I hit it, and that really helps me along with massaging while pumping. It helped me get more than one letdown, so I would definitely be generous with the letdown phase on your pump. Across the board in all the Facebook groups, and I would say even to myself, one of the biggest tips you can get is don't quit on a bad day. You know, like I've said, those feelings of hating your pump, being mad that today you made super less than you made 3 days ago, you've just had enough of it, you've had enough of the stress and being hooked up and everything like that. I know it's really hard to push through those feelings, but don't quit on a bad day. You know, if you need to, go vent on a support group page or something like that, and try to find some other moms who can help lift you up and get you out of that crappy day, because we all have them, but it's important you don't quit on them. If your insurance doesn't cover a pump and you don't have a lot of money to spend, I would look into the Spectra S2. It's around $115 on Amazon, which is super affordable if you ask me when it comes to other pumps that you might consider. Or you can go on something like the EP Trading Post, or I think there's even an EP Buy, Sell, and Trade, I think is what it's called. I'm not sure. There's a couple groups on Facebook where EP ladies are selling their supplies, which it would be a used pump, and I know that they don't always recommend that, but pumps are expensive, so, you know, I don't know what they expect us to do. If you can't afford one and your insurance doesn't supply one, what else are moms supposed to do other than buy a used one? So I would definitely look into either the Facebook groups or, like I said, the Spectra on Amazon. They're pretty affordable there. The last little tip that I have for you guys is to set alarms for your pump sessions. I used to do this for middle of the night, and I never really did it during the day, but I think I'm going to this time around, especially with having 2 kids. But it can be super helpful. Like I said, I used to set them for my middle of the night pumps just so I would get up, and that helped me make sure that I was staying on track. That pumping schedule is super important, so setting alarms can really help keep you on track with that. So that is everything for my tips and tricks video. This video is like 40 minutes long as of right now. Hopefully I can edit it down for you guys. These are things, like I said, that I've either experienced, got from different Facebook groups, whatever it may be, which if you did comment on either one of the Facebook groups posts, thank you so much. I very much appreciate it, because like I said, I did not think of some of these, and you guys are brilliant. If any of you watching have any tips or tricks that I did not mention, leave them in the comments below so people can check those out and can learn that way too. I'm just all about helping you guys out through this pumping journey, and I hope I can even instill some of these in my pumping journey coming up. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.